Respected Shri Guru Murthy Ji, Director of VIF, Dr. Arvind Gupta, Dr. Dilip Chakravarti, distinguished scholars, my old friends and colleagues in the VIF, members of the media, thank you very much for being here. Today is a very special day. Firstly, my greetings to all of you on Chaitra Navratri and New Year of Vikrami Samvat 2081. It is a very auspicious day. It's a new year for us and very scientific new year. We can talk about it some other day, that why this is the right position of the constellation of the stars and the sun and the moon when this new year starts. Friends, for me, it's a day of a very great satisfaction. It was the initiative that was taken in the VIF, thanks to the idea and inspiration of Shri Guru Murthy Ji, who has been always a very dear friend and a colleague, and who had always been shunning the new ideas and thinking that how we can really contribute to something that we will be able to give a new sense of identity and a pride, not only to our countrymen, but also to our coming generations. Our self-image, our identity is deeply connected to your own perception of history and the world's perception of what you are. This idea was conceived. And when we thought of it, I don't think we were very sure how will it proceed, and also not very sure whether we'll be able to complete it. I must give great credit to Dr. Dilip Chakravarti, an eminent scholar, a professor emeritus in the University of Cambridge, the Department of Archaeology, with a very long experience and a very credible background of being a very eminent scholar who has contributed a lot and who understood the core and the context and philosophy and this thing of the real historical things in any civilization. And he, along with Professor Makhan Lal, who is unfortunately not here today, who really worked very hard for hours and hours. He was sitting here and contacting the people, writing some of these things, correcting these drafts and others. And I think I must thank most the large body of the scholars from all over the country who had specialized in their respective areas, who gave their time, who contributed to making these research papers, of which are of very high quality, and we can really be proud of it, not only of what they have written, but the great references that they have quoted, and sources from where they have derived their material. So it makes it really a very historical study. There are few questions about Indian history that nobody questions, even our detractors. One is its continuity. Or I'll come to continuity later. One is its antiquity. That it is one of the oldest civilizations. And probably the human life had evolved and society had perfected itself to a very high thing. Now, who did it, whether they were the original people or they came from outside, they may be biased about that. But they all concede that this is a a civilization of antiquity. Second is that it is a continuity. That is, if it started 4,000 or 5,000 years before BC or this thing, it had been continuous till today. There is no disruption in that. So it was the continuity. And the third feature was its a vast expanse. It was not a small hamlet that you find somewhere with a developed island or something like that. It is right from the river Oxus to probably Southeast Asia and others, where the footprints of the civilization were very visible. Now the paradox is this, that when you think on this expanse of 6,000 or 8,000 years, of the continuous history of in such a vast area, the narrative that has been brought is that probably the first chapter about Indian history in any of the Western thing, it starts with Alexander. That Alexander was the first thing as if he discovered India. And it was the victory of the West over the East. He conquered India. Actually, he only came to the border of India to Jhelum and then probably was not able to proceed further, and thereafter that was the end of him. But the fact remains that the entire history of the Western thing you find when the history of India or the history of the West is narrated, this is about the history of Alexander. Now, Justice William Jones, who was in Calcutta High Court from 1746 to 1792, he had written, and he became a big Sanskrit scholar and he studied Sanskrit here. He said that nowhere in any Sanskrit literature, or Pali literature, or Prakrit literature, or the local dialects, I could find any mention of Alexander. There is no mention. Where there was a copious literature written by not only him, but also the subsequent Greek generals like Menander, who later became Milind, and others, that there was no this thing. It was a non-event. It was a very small event of history where some raiders, the horsebacks came, probably wanted to plunder or come to these things, and thereafter got the resistance, and thereafter they returned back. But you made such a big mountain of it, as if the world history has changed with Alexander the Great Conqueror. And thereafter, then you find, then it comes to the medieval ages. More to the things of the Muslim things, and then the Mughal Empire. If anybody comes to Delhi and wants to visit the historical places or the tourist thing, well, he will find it will be the Taj Mahal or Red Fort or Humayun Tomb or any of these places. As if that is all what the history is all about. Why it happened so? This is something for us to ponder. That why was it? We can have this thing that we didn't write our own history. Yes, that's one of the reasons. Why did it happen? One, of course, is the factor that there was a foreign domination, and this foreign domination of physical domination can be accomplished through your armies, through this thing, but for mental domination, it is necessary that they should have no sense of pride in their own history, in their past. Nations are members of a nationhood are those people who share a common sense of the history, common sense of our ancestors, common sense of their achievements of the past, and a common vision of their future. All those who believe in that, they make one nation. People who have got a different sense of history, if my hero is your villain, you and I cannot make a nation. So for the nationhood, not to develop the feeling of the nationhood, it was that necessary that the foreign domination was responsible to some extent. Then there was a deliberate attempt to destroy the vestiges of the proofs of that. Now, it's not only the temples, that religious bigotry, this thing, but institutions like Nalanda or Takshila or the libraries or these things, they were the prime targets that they have to be destroyed, and that any sources from where Indians could connect themselves to their glorious past, that has got to be connected. But there was another reason for that. That was the Indians' own mindset. And the India's own mindset was that for us, events and personalities were very secondary events. It was the thoughts, the intellect, evolution of these things the science, technology, the outer space, the inner space, what is the universe and this thing. That is what constituted the focus of the intellectual these things. So we don't find that treatise about the kings or the queens, their marriages and divorces or killings or this thing, as Mr. Gurumurthy said, it's not only about the conquest and the killings and domination and subjugation, which was the history. They were the people, they were peripheral. Material part, anything that was material, was considered to be much more mundane than something which was more sublime, that was more intellectual and more thoughtful. Now that focus of intellectualism probably, even if when there are some references, and that is why this thing in the literature or this thing like that, say in Raj Tarangeni, either in Kallan writing something and others, there are passing remarks. The more thing is that he's talking about the nature, he's talking about the rivers, he's talking about the mountains, he's talking about this thing. There are the various types of things that he has mentioned. It's not the chronology of these things or something of the great achievements of the people. Now, this combination of these factors deprived us of our having the right sense of our own existence and identity. And history is important for your identity. History is important for you to understand who you are and what you are. You build your future on the basis of what you think was your past. And this probably was internalized by no one else better than Swami Vivekananda. When he was addressing the youth in Alwar, he said, I want the Indians to write their own history. But he emphasized, not that I wanted to write a wrong history to build up the morale of the Indians. I want the right, correct, authentic, objective history. And that is what Professor Chakravarti also mentioned just now. That is when we started the project, we said, let it be totally authentic. We don't want to generate propaganda material. The foundations of such type of intellectualism does not have a long shelf life. If you want it to be this thing, let it be based on complete facts and on the basis of authentic historical or authentic scientific material that we can quote it. And that's why I said that any one of you who will have the opportunity to go through that, you will find that our scholars have done a great work in seeing that anything that they've quoted, any conferences that they have drawn is based on very solid scientific foundations. And not only in India, but now I find that more and more, even the foreign scholars who have written of late, there are many good districts in which have said that about, say, the fact that the earth is spherical and not a plane, this thing. It took 2,400 years for the West to know and agree to that. They always doubted and they always thought that it was a very wrong thing. Circumference of the earth or the distance of the earth from the sun, all these are now correct to more than 0.1% accuracy. How did they find it? And this is not something which is something anybody is inventing. It is something which already existed but was not probably brought out. Partly these books are brought out, but now some of the books have come out in the West also which have profoundly wrote about it. This is something that we call our history. Our history of science, our history of literature, our history of metallurgy, our knowledge of the evolution of the society, the human beings and their existence, their experiences and their aspirations, and how we look at the life in totality as a whole. In these 11 volumes, which I must congratulate Dr. Arvind Gupta, that he has been able to successfully complete this task. It's always easy to start anything, but I think the real victorious are those who finally score the goal, and the last man who scores the goal, who is the real winner. So I must congratulate him. And of course, Dr. Dilip Chakravarti had been associated with it right from the beginning till the end, and he deserves all the thing of it. And of course, Gurumurthy ji's contribution, both in the conceiving the idea and practicing. And we used to discuss about these matters for hours, for a very, very long time, which we are very fond of spending time with each other on issues like that. And thereafter also, now that his taking much more and greater time, spending a little more time in the VIF, that is final volumes have come. I congratulate all of you and all the VIF and its entire staff for having done this. But this is not the end. This was a means to an end. And the end objective of really building up a nation on the basis of a sense of common heritage, of common background from which we come, on the having pride in our ancestry and in our achievements of the past, and having a vision for the future. How do we really achieve that? What else is there that can be done? I think that is one thing that probably should continue to exercise the brains of the people here in the VIF, that they are able to take this thing. The second thing which has been a little shortcoming of this project has been that while a lot of material has been this thing, it could not be disseminated as much as we wanted it to. One of the reasons that it's too bulky. Second is that it's very expensive. After all, building up these 11 volumes have costed us, it cost about 25,000 for this thing like that. Prime Minister Modi, when he was presented at this thing, and when I told him about it, he was so delighted. He wanted to have it. It still finds a very place of prominence in his library, and he's very fond of it. I often pick up a book and go through it. And he had an idea that, well, we should, to the all world libraries, we should donate it. I think that idea is still there. We probably will accomplish it sometime. That where the researches are being done. So maybe in all the Western universities and also in the Eastern universities where various scholars are working on various themes. Now, for example, we are going to make this thing in Lothal, a museum of shipping, and an international this thing of the shipping. Now, there they want also some of the things from the original papers of this thing on these which are available. Similarly, there is a whole plan of making the museums of what used to be the North Block and South Block, and the secretaries moved from here. And in these museums, we have some dedicated things. Now, for example, I tell you how the small things matter. We had some things of the Buddhist time, and these relics of the Buddhist relics, we took them to wherever we take them, whether it is Sri Lanka or to Thailand or to Cambodia and others. They are the great district for India. And India has got a huge number of them. We have preserved them, but we have probably not been able to leverage it. Now, I think last month and a month before that, for the last 2 months, we had been doing it. And in most of the Buddhist countries, we find that there is a great understanding and great need and desire to have this sort of exposure to the Indian this thing. So I do hope that VIF will continue this great work that they have started and that they have been doing. And once again, my heartiest thanks and congratulations to Dr. Dilip Chakravarti, Dr. Arvind Gupta, Shri Makkallalji, and all the staff of the VIF, and particularly the research scholars who have done a splendid work. Thank you very much, all of you.